episode of Do-It-Yourself Girlfriend. In this episode, we're going to take down this door, remove this wall, put in a pocket door so that when he closes his closet door, it just slides over and we no longer have the battle with the doors. I also get to use this cool new tool. It's my new Ryobi mini circular saw, and it has got a lot of power in this little machine, a lot like me. So, here we go.
The first step is to remove the existing door and hardware. You'll do this by unscrewing the hardware, and then you can remove the door from the door frame. Once you remove the door, you can just set it aside because you'll use it later when installing the pocket door.
In order to install the pocket door, we have to take down this wall, and this is where the pocket's going to go. So to do that, I need to take down the trim work on the door. I've already scored at the top of the ceiling and down the wall, and then I'm going to use my new tool from Ryobi, the mini circular saw, to actually cut through the sheetrock so I can tear it down. When you're using this, make sure you're always wearing your safety goggles. It's going to create a big mess. So I've got a mask and then old clothes, and I wear these gloves because when it goes through that sheetrock, little bits of sheetrock are going to spray out. So in order to protect my hands, I've got my work gloves on. Here we go.
To remove the door trim and baseboard, you'll want to gently insert a small pry bar between the trim and sheetrock, and then you'll just gently pry the trim away from the sheetrock.
Okay, now that all the trim work is done, it's time to use the mini circular saw. Now that the trim is off, I'm going to just cut through, make a straight line through, and then just rip down the sheetrock. A lot of times men will use a box cutter and they'll score it, but I'm honestly just not strong enough. So that's why I have this cool little tool. So again, wear your safety gear. Here we go.
When removing the existing drywall, you only need to remove enough to equal the width of the pocket door and one stud beyond. The new drywall will attach to the stud. Make sure to cut through the drywall and pull away from the wall, and you may have to use a pry bar to pry it away from the studs if it's a little tricky. Also, make sure to pull out any remaining nails.
Wow, that was a mess. Now that we've got all the sheetrock down, we need to remove these studs because again, this is where the pocket door is going to be going. I'm not going to lie, I brought in my husband. Sometimes we do need help. So he has cut the header for me because it was very thick and I just did not have the strength to do it. So now I'm going to cut through these studs and then we will wiggle it and take it down. So here we go. Again, always wear your safety goggles.
For this step, use a reciprocating saw to cut away the studs where the new pocket door will be to make room for the door and the new header. Also, trim the nails and remove the studs with either a hammer or a crowbar.
Okay, so now we're ready to put in the header, and as you can see, I have friends to help, even my little dog Max. So, because I've never put in a header, I've invited my husband, who is usually behind the camera, to come help us out and explain how we're going to put in the header. Joe?
Yep, so a header basically, as you can see, when we slide this component for the pocket door in, it's going to get connected and fastened here, but as you can see at the top, there's a pretty good gap or opening. So we've got to fill that in with what's called a header. And that serves two purposes. One is it's there to actually connect the top of your pocket door component to the rest of the wall and hold it stable. And also the header is something that actually carries some of the load above what is above here. In this case it'd be the attic, but it carries that load down and brings that weight down through to the floor. And you spread or you disperse the weight across to the two sides when you build a header. I don't know if you've not seen a header, I don't have one right here to show you, but it's essentially you use 2x, and it can be anywhere from 2x6s, 2x8s, 2x12s, and you sandwich them together, which we'll show you in this video how we're doing that. And it basically goes horizontally or from end to end up here, and you build a support 2x4 on this side and a support 2x4 on this side behind the drywall, which you can't see. We'll have another one here. And we will bring that up to a certain height where we need it, which is basically the top of this. And then that's what will carry the 2x8, the double 2x8 that we're going to put across here, which is called the header. Nest it in there, we'll nail it all together, screw it all together, and then prepare that. And once that's ready, then we can actually bring this pocket door frame into it and actually connect it up where it needs to go. So the first step in all of this is getting the header and the two support 2x4s on the sides done. And one thing I want to encourage you with that is measuring is very critical. This has to be exact. Not to scare you, but it does have to be exact, because once that's all put in place and screwed in, nailed in, however you're going to do it, it's in place, it's permanent. And you still need to make sure that there's enough of a small gap that you can put your pocket door frame inside that, underneath the header, and still be in position on the floor where it needs to be.
So the first step when we are putting in a header is we've got to build the 2x4 support. To do that, you need to look at the instructions on your pocket door.
So there are different sizes on the instructions, and we have a 2-foot pocket door. So you'll go over and find that our 2x4 needs to go up 84.5 inches. So first we will measure and mark the wall on both sides at 84.5 inches, and then head over to the saw to cut the 2x4s. Once the 2x4s are cut, you can use your drill and screws to secure the boards into place. And it's smart to use a level to make sure that both of them are even along the way. Now we're going to measure the distance across the frame, and that came out to 53 inches. So we will head to the saw and cut our 3 boards at 53 inches each and create our new header. When building the new header, you'll want to match the lumber and material to the same size lumber and thickness as the old one removed to make the new header. The difference is this one will be longer than the old one because it's going to need to run the entire length of the pocket door frame. First, we're going to attach the 2x4 to the 2 sideboards. Then we are going to secure both the 2x8s into place back to back using 3-inch construction screws. You can also use 16D framing nails for this step, and then once the header is secure and level, it's time to install the pocket door frame and pocket door. Now it's time to install the pocket door frame, and every kit can be a little different, so make sure to follow your instructions carefully. Okay, so we already installed the pocket door frame, and now it's time to install the door. And we're going to reuse the old door because it's cheaper and it matches the doors that are already in place. And the pocket door frame came with the hardware to install the door.
So I'm going to show you this because once we start to install it, you may or may not be able to see it. But the hardware that came with it, it came with the glide, which is actually going to go in that frame up top. And we're going to just kind of put it in there, and it's what glides along that frame. Then this is actually going to go on top of the actual pocket door. You just screw it in, And once it's screwed in, then we'll lift the door and fit this inside. Let me show you how to do that. It'll just fit inside of there like that. And then you can see this lever here. We'll just close that and it will lock it in place. I'm not gonna do it right now just because it's really hard to get unlocked. And then once you get it, imagine the door hanging from here. It's what's gonna hold the door in to slide open and shut. And you wanna make sure that the door is level and not a little bit to the left or to the right, because that will make the door slide open or slide closed. So we're gonna make sure it's level. To do that, there's a small little bolt on here that our kit came with a wrench, but you've got wrenches at your house if you need them. And you're just gonna turn it to the left or to the right to make sure that door is level. So with that said, let's get started.
Now we need to mount the door latch hardware to the door with the screws provided in the hardware kit. We are placing each latch 2 inches away from the edge of the door on both sides, and then using our drill and the screws that came with the hardware set to secure them into place. Now we need to line up the door with the 2 wheel sets that came with the kit and lock them into place. Then you can slide the door to the back, and you may notice that the door is not all the way lined up with the frame. And that's okay, because you can use the wrench to tighten the door latches until the door fits perfectly with the frame. Now we are going to attach the plate to the door that we are using to replace the doorknob. And we'll do this by using pliers and a hammer to secure the tiny little nails that came with the plate kit into place. And you'll want to do this on both sides. The door will probably be a little wobbly in between the frame, so you can use screws to secure these space fillers into place to fix that problem. Now it's time to repair the walls. The next step is to cut the 4x8 sheets of drywall to fit the specific areas needed. To do this, you can measure the areas that need replacement drywall and then replicate them on the new drywall. We are just using a box cutter to cut the pieces and then break them off. Okay, so we finished installing the pocket door and made some minor adjustments to make sure that it's level, and now we are going to hang the sheetrock and finish the wall.
To do that, we've already made our measurements of the wall and the header. We've cut our sheetrock accordingly, and then we're gonna actually install it. So we'll pull it over, we'll put it in place, we'll screw it into the 2x4s, then we're gonna tape it and mud it. To get the smooth finish, we're gonna probably need to mud it 3 or 4 times. But you want, in the end, you want the finish to feel like literally like the sheetrock again, like there's no holes on it or anything. So with that said, let's get started.
First, measure and mark the drywall where the 2x4s are so you know where to put the screws. Now you can secure drywall screws every 18 inches as a best practice, but make sure that every screw goes into a 2x4 stud. Screw the drywall screws just past the surface of the drywall.
So as you can see, we have the sheetrock hung. We've screwed it into the 2x4 so it's nice and secure. So now all we have to do is tape it and mud it. To do that, we're gonna put a light layer of mud on that to hold the tape in. Then we'll tape it and then we'll mud over that again. The mudding part you're probably gonna have to do 2 or 3 different times in order to get the nice smooth finish and to cover the screws and all the different joints. We'll put tape up where sheetrock meets sheetrock, but then the screws will actually just use mud to fill in those holes. You can see I have 3 different sizes of spatulas. So I have a small one that is very flexible for like the screws and nail holes. Then I have one that's a little bit wider. That's gonna help me when I'm mudding over my tape. And then I have one that I use for finishing. And this is, I've already got the mud up and I'm just gonna do one good swipe in order to get a very thin layer. Professional sheetrockers, they use huge ones and they use big trays, but since I'm not doing an entire room or anything like that, I'm gonna use the smaller utensils. So here we go.
You'll want to tape the drywall using sheetrock joint tape where the sheetrock pieces meet. To do this, first spread a thin layer of drywall mud over the open joint to have tape. Once the mud is there, stretch and press a long piece of tape over the mudded joint, and the mud will hold the tape in place. You'll want to allow the mud to dry following instructions on the drywall bucket. Once the mud is dry, sand for a smooth finish. This step might need to be repeated 2 or 3 times to ensure a smooth finish so the joint tape and screws are no longer visible. If your walls are textured, you'll need to use texture spray so that your wall matches the surrounding walls. Make sure you allow the texture to dry according to the directions on the can, and then after it's dry, you can gently sand down the wall to knock down any rough texture. The next step is to paint the wall to match the other walls. And finally, the last step is to reinstall the door trim using either finish nails and a hammer or a finish nail gun. So we're finally done with our pocket door.
And it works like a charm. Thanks for watching.